participants. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Give everyone just a few minutes to filter in here. If you have any questions you want to get answered, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A session, or as we kick off, if you want to use the raise hand feature, we'll go ahead and give you the opportunity just to ask your question. Okay, I will stop troubleshooting my issue with this script form step on the screen. Anybody have any questions they'd like to cover? We don't have anything pre-submitted for today, so if you want to go ahead and use the raise hand function, we can kick off. All right, Chris is up.
So I have a question that I think I've asked before, but I kind of am going to be working into, is there an alternative kind of a way, method as it were? The basic question begins, I have a dashboard, and then I want to find a URL that would allow a user to maybe click on a link in an email to open the dashboard.
Okay.
And the wrinkle in everything, and this is actually where I was going to be going to, is that because we organize our dashboards in the workflow catalog, we've been in the habit of setting the show in portal setting on our folders to false.
Okay.
So what I have noticed is that if that show in portal setting is true, there is a pretty straightforward link, just link to the folder,
Okay.
and that gets you to the dashboard.
Okay.
But now that we are this far into an organized workflow catalog, we don't really, and hiding our corresponding dashboard folders, the question then becomes, how could I provide a link that would actually get the user to the same dashboard?
Is it that the links don't work, or that you can't find the link easily?
I've not been able to come up with any link that actually successfully opens the browser to the dashboard.
And so you're actually putting them in the actual workflow catalog. Let me get out of here. So, like, let me add a folder called test, and then come to the workflow catalog. then under general, I'm going to add a catalog item and add open page. Is this what you've been doing? Just want to make sure we're talking about the
That
so this
does
will
look
be
right.
open folder, and then I'll select the folder I just created. All right, and then I have start workflow, general, open folder, and it'll take me to that folder.
Right.
So is this the view that you have here?
Mm-hmm.
So now what you should be able to do, the first thought here is if I right click, I can go to manage. So this workflow catalog action just points at a folder, and then the default page on the folder determines what is being shown, I think, because if I come back here and edit this,
right, you can pick your page.
Can you specify a page? Then I specify the page here as well. Oh, neat. But that's just a URL. If I come to test and I look at manage integration, view integration details, I should be able to get a URL directly to this. So credential login, and then I can select my page folder view and leave everything else the same. And I should be able to get a URL that will allow me to open that page. Doesn't matter if it's part of workflow catalog or not.
Right.
So I think just needing to use integration details on the actual folder itself is probably maybe the missing piece here.
Well, no, there's another wrinkle though.
Okay.
So you got your menus in sort of in the perfect spot. And in your menu here under manage, there's this user portal visibility hide and user portal visibility show.
Sure.
Now we've made a habit of changing that to hide. So we would pick hide. And then when you do that, the link that you would get from the integration will not get you to that folder anymore.
Okay.
Now, as an administrator, when you're logged in as administrator, I think you might get there. But ordinary users don't get there.
All right, so let's see. Let's go to Lunch and Learn test, and we'll say manage permissions, and we'll give all users the right permissions here. Can use, can open, can view. And then let me go create myself as a user.
Though I'm beginning to think, I think even with admin, you might have trouble getting there.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is that integration details link, I'm going to copy this. Oh, what's wrong with my local? Oh, good grief. All right, so I'm going to log out and log in as myself. Someday. Good grief, what is going on with my local right now? Check task manager. Is my memory pegged? Oh, indeed. Chrome. It's Chrome's fault.
We've
All
got
right,
two
so
tabs loading for what that's worth.
yeah, so let me get out of here. Get out of here. Okay, so I have my thing. There's my link. What's wrong with this? take me to the login page. Interesting. What's the view you're actually seeing? What happens when you get this? Localhost decisions primary folder ID, page name folder plus view force. Chrome equals off. Let's get rid of it. Let's just do folder plus view. That naming convention, what's wrong there? Get rid of that.
I don't think you have to give it a page name
Huh.
usually.
Okay, won't let me get in at all. So I'm gonna come
Well, it looks like you're
in.
logged out. It seems like it's treating you like you're still logged out.
Yeah, it appears. Did it log me in?
I mean, you didn't like your password.
All right, there we go. Now we're logged in. We'll try. Okay, that seems to be taking me to that folder, which is hidden from end user portal visibility for sure. And that
looks
link
like
is
your
taken.
My Documents folder.
Oh, you're right. Thank you, Corey. Duh.
Yeah, if you do that
Interesting.
with, if you remove the
log
Chrome
in.
equals off, does it still take you to my, do you still go
Yeah,
into this weird view?
I believe so. This is
No,
definitely my documents.
Yeah, this is the view that I'm kind of wanting, so I did
Okay.
want to keep the Chrome everything. But
Okay,
yeah, this
just
is our experience too, is that as soon as I mark that folder as hide, because it seems to me it's confusing to have the workflow catalog and then also the folders. Every time I try to build a URL in this fashion, it will only go to my document. The user is going to land on my documents.
Yeah, I think so I mean, this sort of makes sense to me. I mean,
It
this does make
does.
sense, right?
I mean, I'll buy into that. There's some sensibility to it because I hid the folder, so you can't go there. So let me take you to my documents instead. But the thing that but I still want to be able to link to a dashboard. And I think, but somehow, when I open up this catalog and I click on this item in the catalog, it gets me there. And so I don't understand, is there some secret sauce that I might be able to exploit that I could, that the secret that is really, how the catalog gets me there, that might be something I could work with.
Well, if I just turn off can view only, does not have permission. Yeah, so that's so I can't just leave open permission only. I have to have can view and can open. Really, the thing is because you just want to have it. You don't want it to be both in the folder tree and inside of the workflow catalog, right?
Right.
Now, if we put it, is there any behavior difference? I'm on another screen, so bear with me. If we put it in, I'm going to create a folder here, regular folder. It's called tests parent. And then I'm going to move tests inside of that. All right, now that still shows for me. But if I take its parent and I say hide, test does still show. Manage permissions. Anyone in the peanut gallery have any ideas? I don't know what to do to try to meet this need. I'm just guessing. Test's still there.
There's a database thing to show in, because this is how we did it with within the trials.
So actually you set the show in tree value to false for test?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, sure. Let's give it a shot.
You'll need to do that and restart SHM.
Here we go. All right, so I'm going to log out here. Log in as back in as my admin account. So I think this will be the second. Is this the second time we'll be showing you how to do something you're asked to do, Chris, by making a change to the database? I think so. This is
Maybe so.
becoming a theme. So let's find tests here. All right, and I'll steal test ID from the URL. And I will come get our query editor here. So that's not what we wanted. So Corey is advising us to look at the entity folder table.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, is it show in tree? Yep, show in tree here set to true. That means what we can do is run an update query.
I think you might want to set that to 0 instead of a name like that.
That's actually fair. Yeah, let's see.
That would be my bet.
Okay,
Huh.
let's
So
restart.
I did not know that this query thing automatically switches bits to true and false.
It definitely does on display. I'm surprised it did that on write. That seems like it could be problematic. Let me bounce my service really quick.
This would also be the sort of thing we could potentially do from a flow by way of, going after the folder entity itself.
Say that again.
Sort of thinking ahead that if this works, I'd be looking at trying to set that flag by way of a update entity step.
Yeah, sure. You could do that as well. Yep. All right, coming back up here. All right, so if we go to the portal, probably doesn't matter. That's nothing. Test doesn't show. My apps, lunch and learn, tests parent. Test still shows here, but that might just be
Now
cache.
I wonder though that if you check the manage folder on that.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering if the flag we set is actually the same flag we set when we say don't show in folder. Oh, but you
No,
said
there's two.
don't
There's
show in
this is.
tree.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry. So okay, I'm not catching up.
So if I go to portal, oh, that's not what I wanted. Let's go here. Re-get
So
our
you may
integration
have to,
details.
change this to change the visibility, right? So I think for the moment, you're going to get the same result.
Yeah, I think so. That took us, but test is still showing. If we run our query again, have you successfully set that value to true or false,
Yes.
Corey?
And
got it to stay?
Yep.
Well, I'm thinking that you have to go switch the under the manage menu. I think you have to switch it from hide to true. I mean, from hide to show.
Well, it's showing right now, right?
Now, right now now it's hidden. Now, if you hit that, it'll go to show.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's a viable chance that it doesn't show in the tree, but it does let you browse to it. If I take to heart what the suggestion is.
It takes us back to my documents. Yeah, I don't know. Still documents. There it's back. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know why it's not respecting that change. Oh, good grief. Show and tree is definitely false. And that's not being respected. Yeah. Well, that's something to sort out. Yeah, Chris, I'm not sure why. I don't actually know what's going on here. This should not be showing right now. I mean, clearly it should
Well,
not be.
I think you're in studio. It makes sense that it would have to show. It's when you're in portal that we don't want it to show.
Well, we've set the value show in tree to false, which means it shouldn't show in a folder tree no matter what context you're in, either studio or portal, yet it is still showing itself. So that's not being respected for some reason, even though we restarted Service Host Manager. So I don't know. We'll have to follow back up on that one, I guess, in more detail. That's it's definitely triggered off of the show. I mean, it makes sense to me though that you can't access it from a direct link, even if with show and portal being set to false.
Mm-hmm.
When the way it's currently constructed, right? Because you're saying don't make this available in the end user portal, even if you're trying to access it with Chrome equals off.
But then the follow-up is, okay, this start workflow has got a piece of magic that can get the user there. And I'm wondering, is there some way I could borrow that magic to use in a link?
So what you say that even when, okay, but
Yeah.
it works.
So if you switch to the portal, right?
Right,
you can,
right.
You know, you can still get, you know, it's not that it shows the folder, you know, in the folder tree is that, but this gets me, you see like your path there in the upper left, there's that path that says, yep, you're in the test folder now.
Right.
And so what I want to do is maybe have a flow, for example, that's going to run a step that is going to mimic as if, you know, you came to portal, and now let me go ahead and pretend to be the workflow catalog and actually do the same thing as the workflow catalog and get you into this dashboard.
You could try with like an inform session step. I mean, I'm just guessing here. That because you can use that to navigate to places in the portal. Let's see really quickly. We have our URL, right? And right now we know if we load it, we don't, okay, we get to the folder right now, but that's because, so we're gonna hide it again. And okay, so we're in the bad state. So if we come back to studio, let's build a flow. Yeah, it's interesting. The workflow catalog is sort of getting around that. Let's say forms in inform session. Inform session is going to be navigate. And we'll put in our folder ID. And I'll just leave this blank. So now if I get the integration details for this, probably need to call that as UI, right? Oops. Flow ID. That takes me to my documents also. But if I run this by itself, flow 2, that takes me to the folder. So it must be some difference about already being, well, here we go. Let me see. My documents, manage, add flow as action. Let me add my flow 2. as an action in my documents folder. Right, then I'll come to portal, right click my documents, run my action, and that'll take me. Yeah, so there might be, I guess this might be considered a DT. Like we have some different behavior here if you're already authenticated in versus in the portal versus coming in from a link. I mean, clearly there's a difference here.
So maybe like start a user session or some such thing.
And Chrome equals off. I'm getting redirected. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, this is probably something we should follow up on in the support channel, I think. Sorry, Chris, this is getting more tricky than I expected.
Yeah, it seems like, it's the sort of thing that there's got to be something that's in the way, but it's got to be something small because clearly there's a route that is in play. And I just don't know if there, if I need a feature request to actually be able to connect these dots or if there's just something I'm missing.
No, I think this is something we got to follow up on and look into in more detail.
Okay, that works.
So we can submit a ticket on your behalf and get that in, and then we can follow up on that. I'm not really sure. I mean, it's definitely appears to behave differently if you're already in the portal versus coming in. So there might be a piece with the authenticating the current session that is meaningful here to this behavior change. I don't actually think it has anything to do with my test here argues it's nothing to do with the workflow catalog being fancy. It's that you're already authenticated in. Since I see this flow action behaving the same. So I think it's more about the authentication than it is about workflow catalog doing some kind of magic.
That looks sensible to me.
Yeah, but yeah, so I think what we'll do is ask Adam to submit a ticket on your behalf, and then we will follow up in the support channel and see if this is considered a defect by the product team or not, and then go forward from there.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Sorry I couldn't get a easier answer there for you. Okay, anyone else got questions that they'd like to cover today? That was quite a race around some menus there for a second. All right, Carlos has got one. I work on a form that allows external users via named sessions to upload files to the portal after they receive an email with a link to said form. Where can I establish a time limit in such a way that said access expires in an hour and a day, calculated from the moment the email is sent? So now you probably aren't expiring the name. Everyone's using the same name session for all of these, right?
For the moment, I use the same name session, yes.
So one idea that comes to mind, if you need an expiration piece, because you're not expiring, there's not a concept of expiration on the name session itself. We do have JSON web tokens that you could use that can expire. So you could have an account and you could get a JSON web token to use for that and then have it expire. Everyone would basically be using the same account, but they are using the same account already for a named a session, right? Let me see. I don't know if I've ever done this in a flow, but I know we have some docs about our JWTs. So how to set up and use JWT is in our integrations JWT folder. Log in and get JWT token, get context from JW token. Now, can I pass this in a, oh, I get a session value. I get a session ID back. I can get it in an API call, passing a username and password. Okay. And then I think these expire based on the session expiration itself. Does anyone know that off the top of their heads? I'm just going to refer to my fellow employees as the peanut gallery from now on. You might be able to use this to HTTP header, call APIs to run flow report, yeah. But they give us a session ID back, so we could toss the session ID into the URL, theoretically. Session value is our session ID, I imagine. So let's see here. What's the edit portal settings, secret key, how to change a JWC secret key. So do I have that? System settings, JWT, I don't see it. Where was that at? Edit, oh, it's edit portal settings. So here's portal settings. And let me search for secret. Oh, it doesn't bring it. All right, JWT then. JWT. No. What version am I running right now? Okay, well, that definitely means we have JWTs in here. What's wrong with this doc? How to change? System settings, portal settings, secret key. What am I missing here? Are these alpha sorted? They are. JWT is not a module, right? Corey?
No,
This
it's
is just
not. It's
default
in.
stuff. What am I
Yeah.
missing?
What version are you on? Sorry, I missed that.
617.
Then it should be in the
Weird.
portal settings.
Yeah, something's wrong
There
here.
should be a
Integration
should
internal
be.
services account service.
Should be at the top. It's.
I don't see it. That screenshot is lying to me.
Yeah.
Well, that's all right. That's fine. Who cares about the secret key so far? Let's just see. So it's telling me to look at integration, internal services, account service. Does this give you back? This gives us back a session ID when we run it, right? I'm pretty sure. So if we look at integration, internal services, account service, I'm just find JWT here. So get context from JWT token, log in and get JWT token. So we wouldn't call this, this wouldn't make sense to call this in a flow. Let's see here. See what we get back when we run this.
Then
So let's look.
you are using a certain user for this connection.
I'm sorry, say that again.
You are using a certain user for this connection.
Yes, right now, yes. Get context from token, takes in our token, but so is your name session, right? Your name session is technically linked to an account. So theoretically, you could have a flow that uses an account with very restricted permissions, and then do this. What I'm trying to do here, let me just see. Let me pass my token into my get token step. Let me run this again. Okay, so if you look at our get token context, there's our session value. So if I were to take that and use it as a session ID in an incognito session, I can probably, so if I, let's see here, I'm going to send this, I'm going to create a link, blah, 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 here we go. All right, we'll do replace tokens and text. And I'm gonna go to my integration details for my folder, which is right here. I'm gonna copy this into my replace tokens and text step. And I'm gonna add one here called session ID equals session ID. And then I'm going to pass in my get context session value. Is it session? No, session ID. Let me check that. Get context from output, data explorer, get context, session ID. And then I'm going to send that link in an email to myself. I don't have any faith in myself. I feel like all of these are going to fail every time I try them live. Actually, and then subject will be garbage. And here we will do merge plain text. And we'll say, use this link. And link is results. Is the output of replace tokens name result? Okay. So I'm going to debug this. Okay, that sent an email. Let me check my email. All right, so all mail. Be great if our internal users would stop marking these things as spam. So there is my link. So what I'm going to do here is log out. I can't log out, can I? That'll make my session ID bad. If I call this link, it takes me in, which is what I want. And if I call it from incognito, you'll just have to believe me here. Let me. Nope, that took me to a login page. Doesn't like that. One thing you could do though is there's a simpler idea here. I'm futzing around with this thing, but you could. One of the things that we've done before to kind of create some of this behavior is you have a flow, right? And I'm gonna add a designer folder here called build file upload link. And I'm going to create a data structure here of a database structure, and this will be called, link expiration details. Oh, good grief. And this will be expires on, and then I'll have a date time field here. And what I can do is I'm building up a link to send someone. So I'm going to build a flow. That flow is going to say build, link, and send, right? And what I'm going to do is I am going to create one of these expiration pieces. So come to database structures, link expiration details, create, and use build data. And on the expires on, I'm going to use compute date in the future. And I'm going to set it to a constant of 24 hours and 1 minute. And that's going to give me an ID back. And what I'm going to do is then have a send email step. It's going to send me an email. So let me get this hook back up. And that's 2 will be to myself again. And the subject will be upload files. And then I'll go to text merge again for my body. And what I'm going to do is build a flow. And this flow is going to be the upload. This is going to be the work file upload flow, right? And this is where you've got your form with your upload file control. And I'm going to put an input on this thing called, this would be like, I'll just call this thing like expiration ID. And what I'm going to do is use a fetch entities step here. And I'm going to fetch that expiration object. And the fetch criteria is going to be based on the ID equals. And what I'm going to do is pass that ID in from my flow, expiration ID. And then it'll be expires on is less than or equal to, and I'm just going to use current date time. And if it returns a result, it'll show me my form. Otherwise, it's going to go to an end form, which tells the person that no results is there's no ID and with a current, and it's going to say here, you know, very ugly form, and this is going to show me a message that says this link is expired or something like that, you know. So there it is. This link has expired. But otherwise, it'll show me my actual form. So I'll create a regular form here with a file upload control and a button. I'll just call this thing new files. And that's as far as I'll go on that particular thing. So what I'm going to do is get my, I'm going to save this. And I'm going to get my integration details. Call this as UI form, log in. You know, you're going to use your session ID, but I'm just going to keep this login, right? You'll still use your session ID. Generate my URL. So I'm going to bring this into my my flow that builds my URL here. Build link and send. And I'm going to use a replace token and text step again. So search for replace tokens and text. This is my favorite step. I'm sure my friends in the peanut gallery can disagree with me about if they like this step or not. And then expiration ID, I'm going to wrap with curly braces to turn it into a variable. So this will be called expiration ID. And expiration ID is going to come from the entity ID, which if we look at our link expiration details is the output of our step. And then I'll come back to my, sorry, go ahead.
No, yes, sorry, to myself.
I'm going to come here and put link in. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and save this and run it. So I'm going to build link and send. So I'll run that. I'm going to come to my email, refresh it. There's my link, upload files. So I'll bring my email over, upload files. Now I can run this and it'll tell me the link has expired. That wasn't what I was expecting. Did I make my logic wrong there? Expires on. Oh, it's actually, no, that should be right. Let's debug this. So let me really quickly I need to build a report so I can find the ID of the thing I just created. There's link expiration details. I should have one record in here. Great, I'm gonna copy that ID. And I'm gonna debug my flow here. Pass in expiration ID, save this as a unit test, run. Okay, so no results. If we look at input output data, expires on 6/21/1245. Is it, mine is not less than.
Maybe because you put current date and time in the parameter.
Yeah, expires on. So now I'm gonna have to do, let me go back here. How do, oh, I can't go back. Not this flow. So my logic is slightly wrong here. It's not that the expires on is less than or equal to. It'd actually be, it would, greater than wouldn't work.
When you set that hour difference, did you set it in future or in past? Because it looks
Set
like
in
it's
future. Expires on 6/20 to 11:45 a.m.
so an hour ahead of time.
Should be tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Oh,
But I'm saying is less
gotcha.
than, which I'm just going to say greater than right now because it will be greater than, right?
Yep.
But it needs to be between, technically, I guess, right? Yeah, there's our flow. So let me walk back through that madness I just burned through really quick, Carlos, for you. So what I did is I'm actually creating a data object to hold my expiration time. And then I'm sending that as a parameter into my flow. So if you look at my replace tokens and text step here, this is a normal integration link. I have flow ID, tells me the flow to call. Force format is just how to render it. And then all of my custom inputs, my simple inputs, show up as URL parameters. And so what I do is I generate an ID for a new expiration detail record, and then I add that ID into this string, which is a URL to call. And then I pass that URL into the body of an email. And then in my flow, the first thing I do, because I know my flow takes in that ID, is I fetch that ID and I see, is it still good? And here I'm actually doing greater than. In fact, maybe this is the right way to do it. Maybe it is greater than, because as soon as it's expired, it won't be greater than current date time. So maybe this is right. I'm really bad at time zone math. Yeah, Chris is helping us in the chat. And so based on the check of this, I either do something or I show a form that says this is no longer valid. And then I handle, and then the flow can only complete if a valid ID and the expiration date is correct.
And if you send this mail to two different users, each one for different reasons,
You'll get unique IDs for each run of this flow, because every time you run it, it writes a new record to the database.
Okay. Yeah.
And in that way, you could have you could save into this thing like email address or ID details about the person you're sending the request to.
Yeah.
So you could add some additional sort of validation or verification there.
Okay, excellent. Good model. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That was fun. Thanks. I'm not sure about the JWT thing. I'll have to look into that in more detail. I do know that JWTs exist, and if I am correct, and Alex, I'll get to your question right after this. Under portal settings, I believe you can set them to expire with our normal expiration stuff, which is usually at the top. Maybe we changed this recently. Auto lock screen shows auto lock timeout. Where's session timeout at? Oh, okay, portal settings session, and you can control that here on this session timeout using the JWTs. So that might be another option as well. And again, that's this document here, how to set up and use JWT. Okay, yeah, hopefully that helped. Running out of time here, so I'm just going to jump to Alex now. I'm creating a form with a data repeater for its line items. These line items contain many fields and will not fit in one line. And in addition, it possibly requires complex data entry rules. What would be a good approach to build this? I experimented with trying to show only one of the fields in the line item and an icon. Decided to open a subflow, which in turn shows a form, but I'm probably passing it. So I think, yeah, everyone can see the questions. Is that right? Do I have to read that in detail, or could everyone see the questions?
No, they can only see.
They cannot see the questions?
No.
Oh, well, then I shouldn't mumble through that, should I? I'm creating a form with a data repeater for its line items. Can we just copy the question into the chat? And that probably would be easier.
Sure.
Sabrina, if you don't mind. We should be doing that, I think, going forward. And I didn't realize they can't see the questions. Okay, so Alex, sounds like a sub-dialog is the approach I would take here. Let me add a place to try to burn through this really quickly. All right. I'm going to use the same data type I just built just to make things simple. So here, I'm going to create a data repeater. And I'm going to build this data repeater off of that expiration data object I just created, just so I can save a second here. And I'm going to put a label, and this label's data is going to come from the actual ID of the object. And then I'm going to put a data, oh no, it'll be under action, subdialog button here. Now this subdialog button is going to be a flow. I'm going to create this flow. This will be called each expiration object viewer. And in this thing, I'm going to create an input on this, which will be called expiration ID. And then here, I'll use a fetch entities step. And on this thing, I will find expiration and I will pass its ID. No, I'll pass its ID in to fetch. And I will show a form on the results path. And on that form, I'll put a date time picker and a button. And this will be called, expiration date. And to make it a little easier on fetch entities, I'll say show path for one result. I will get rid of my results path, plural. And on my form, I'm going to go to my mapping editor and map in entity result expires on, so I can confirm that it shows up. Save this. Now flow inputs is expiration ID. And I need to get, I think it's actually just named ID, right? Let me look at my form data here. Form data.id. Do I have to say form data, Corey? Do you know? Or can I just, does it need to be
say that?
Form, is it spelled
So
like form space data.id?
On the dropdown, you should be able to say form component. No, you're right. On form input data, you do need to say form space data.id.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. What I'm doing here, Alex, is binding the object as an input to my subdialog.
That is the part that I'm missing. I don't know how to do that. So I hope that you guys post the recording of this so I can follow it slowly.
Yeah, let me just see if I can get this to work before we, I don't want to claim success here yet. I'll just call this main flow. Main flow is going to be two things, a fetch entities, and this will fetch my expiration details and a new form on the results path. Now this will be the form that holds my data repeater. And I'm going extra fast here, so I do apologize, but we're running short on time here. User controls data repeater. I'll pick my data repeater. I'll name it DR. And I will then save this. I can then map in DR from entity results and ignore selected line number. So let's go ahead and test this now. So I can debug this. I can run this. There's my data repeater, subdialog button. Okay, wonderful. Look at that. Excellent. So what do we have here? We have a data repeater with how much ever data you want, and we're leveraging a thing called a subdialog flow that can run. And so this could show us the detailed view with all the validation rules you need for the individual item to be entered. And then on submit, we could change the data of this object. So that is probably more work than I'll be able to get done in the next 5 minutes. But if we come back and look at our user control, we can see how I mapped the ID field as a simple label. And if I look at the subdialog button, what I did is I created an input to this thing called expiration ID because I need to feed a value into this flow to display on this form, right? Now that I have that value entered or a flow created, there's going to be flow inputs and flow outputs shown under flow data here. And I went and I edited this. And so there's two options, form input data. And what I did is I made the data name here mirror exactly the data name, which you see in my label in the top left-hand corner. And how did I get that name? Well, if I come to the label and I select text from data, you'll notice it gives me my data object as as an accessible property underneath form data here. And I can select any of the properties that are available. So all I did to get it to bind, the same way this label is now bound to the ID property of form data, and then the workflow engine interprets form data for me automatically. I came in, left this as form input data, and selected, and basically mirrored the exact naming convention, form space data.id, to get the data repeater to pass its ID value into the expiration ID input to the each expiration object viewer flow. And you'll need to do something similar on the way back. Go ahead, please.
I see that you're fetching later. Is there any possibility to pass the entire record of, because I think in the form where this data repeater is, that data repeater is actually a structure, right? That you address as one whole entity. So can you pass the elements, a row in that structure directly to the new form and then avoid the fetch, or there's no way to do that?
That is a good question. This would be, call this thing object. I don't, if anyone knows, I have no idea. So let me know if
so
you guys
this
know.
is going to be the link details, and you can pass the whole form data object.
So same thing, form input data,
It's just going to be form data.
right? So just here come and say form data.
Yep. We can try that. It's a good thing to
So,
test.
Yeah, let me come in here and modify. Okay, I'll get rid of expiration date, and I will route. Go straight to my form, get rid of my fetch entity step. And now it'll be new object.expires on. Will be my new mapping on my form. All right, and then we can save this and we can run main flow. Click sub dialog. Okay, great, wonderful. So yes, the trick there again, it's just a naming convention on the input. If we come back to our user control, select our sub dialog button, we created an input, I called it new object of our type, our link expiration details. And if we edit that, we leave it as form input data and we pass form data in. And so this, you should pass the whole object in as an input to the sub dialog flow, and it'll be unique to each row in the data repeater record.
Okay.
And then you'll do something similar probably, which is on flow output, pass the object back. And then have it bind, I guess, to the selected item. I actually don't know how to do that off the top of my head, and we have 1 minute left. So someone on support can absolutely help you once you get to that part if you're trying to figure out how to pass the data back out. But I think that the tricky part or the magic part here is your input data name needs to match this expected form data input name to get it to work right.
Okay, I'll try that, and if not, I'll be back tomorrow.
Okay, wonderful.
Is there any way for you guys to post this link somewhere?
Yep. Sabrina, how long is it taking us to get them on YouTube now?
I usually upload them same day.
Okay, let's just make sure we send a link to the actual uploaded video to Alex once we have it then, please.
Will do.
Much appreciated.
Okay, thanks everyone for the great lunch and learn. Y'all have a great afternoon.
You too. Bye now.
All right, thank you.